Good evening, everybody. So welcome to the Elementary Community Engagement Public Presentation, and this is round number 2. We want to start by respectfully honoring and acknowledging that we are meeting in the unceded territory and lands of the Squamish people, where we live, love, and learn every day. And we are here as a team. So I will just watch the faces from the left to the right at the top and then to the bottom. So I'm Rhonda Nixon, Superintendent of Schools.
Grant Riley, Assistant Superintendent of Early Learning and Elementary.
Trina Cassidy, Secretary Treasurer.
Bessie Mochikas, Assistant Superintendent, Inclusive Education.
Sherry Christensen, Director of Transportation.
And we have an entire team that you've seen on the screen and actually more behind the scenes who have helped to put together the answers to questions as they've come up and to help us prepare the presentation. So thank you for joining us this evening. The voices you heard, you will hear at different times. And then also if you have questions this evening, we will turn to different individuals to answer them. So really, we have a very simple purpose. It's to review the issue under consideration and to respond to questions and feedback, really through also a web page, but also tonight, as we get your questions, we will answer them. If we can't answer them because we require a little more research, then we would get back to you through the FAQ page. So what is involved in round 1 is we are providing an update on community information, including community information about Sun Peaks and Hepley Creek. A lot of people don't know that they're also included in the North Shore and Brocklehurst engagements. And so we have a moderator this evening. So as you submit questions in writing in the little Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, we will collect those through a moderator and then answer them. Round 2, as you take part in this session and then others, you will have an opportunity to later present. So in round 2, you have an opportunity to engage in presentations if you so choose. Now, tonight is round 2 for you, but there are a couple other opportunities for you. If you decide tonight you really want to present, we do still have a couple more presentations, not connected just to elementary, but to the other schools. So I'll just explain. If you go to our website, www.st73.bc.ca, you'll see the blue box with grade and catchment changes. You click on that, and then you scroll down to the bottom where you see FAQs. Click on that where it says here. You can see the 3 sections. You can submit questions, you can watch recordings, and then the next one is RSVP. So anyone who might have missed this evening and really wishes to attend, there are other sessions listed there. So what is the plan? Sorry if you we had a few technical difficulties there. So what is the plan is that in round 1, and we have already completed round 1, we met with different communities. But what's important for you to know is each community received pretty much the same information. We tried to be very consistent, and we also added the FAQs at the end and on the website. So that's why I would say to you, as we approach round 2, it's the same thing. You're sitting at June 1st right here. But there is another session on June 7th and 14th. So in this evening, if you decide I really want to present, you could still submit your presentation. So how is the board involved in this? Well, the board is involved by hearing the feedback as we have been moving along. And this has been going on for a number of months, including May and June. And the board has heard the feedback and will again on the 19th. But we are pretty confident that by June 19th, the board will be able to make a motion because we think we have heard a lot of really good feedback and have been able to be responsive. So please don't hesitate to ask questions or offer insights. We have a Board of Education comprised of 9 elected school trustees, and they are charged with the responsibility for catchment changes and grade reconfigurations. And they also count on the superintendent's office to put a plan together for community engagement. That engagement involves me actually in my role giving providing clarity about the issue under consideration, the objectives and the criteria, options being considered, and a process for further engagement if needed. So I'm going to start by saying that at the public board meeting on June 14th, the board had received the boundary review. And when they did, they expected the enrollment of Brocklehurst Middle School to increase to 936 students by 2028. It is understandable that at that time, that is a very large number to be dealing with. So they asked for a further in-depth study. We then engaged in that study throughout 2021-22 and into this year. And in fact, we have had 28 consultations in the communities of Brocklehurst and the North Shore and conducted research on the size of middle schools provincially. Brocklehurst Middle School is the 9th largest middle school provincially. And we have met with the staff, administration, and parents over the last few months. And they have confirmed by sharing their experiences, even as of recently, that they are too large now. So the projections, if you look at the numbers, they go out as high as 869. And if you just look to the right, the average size of a middle school is 550 to 600 students. So the big point here is that the enrollment is increasing much above the average size of middle school provincially. So what's the issue? Well, we've heard the issue. The size of Brocklehurst Middle School is too large. So we're examining now and have been examining the need to complete catchment changes and grade reconfigurations on the North Shore and in Brocklehurst that would coincide with the opening of the new Parkrest Elementary School in the spring of 2024. The motions that the board has put in place as of May 1st is to consult with the North Shore and Brocklehurst staff and parent communities about the reconfiguration of the current grades of the following schools. Brocklehurst Middle School is currently a grade 7 to 9, but we're contemplating recommending to the board a grade 8 to 12 school in September 2024. And again, highlighting that it's 2024, a year away, so not this fall. NORCAM Senior Secondary grade 10 to 12 becomes a grade 8 to 12 in September 2024. And we're also analyzing this evening with your help, whether A.E. Perry, Arthur Hatton, Bert Edwards, K. Bingham, Parkrest Elementary, and Rayleigh should each become a K-7 school in September 2024. Motion 2 is to consult the North Shore and Brocklehurst staff and parent communities about the proposals to reopen George Hilliard as a K-7 school again in September 2024. Motion 3 then is to consult the North Shore and Brocklehurst staff and parent communities about the proposal to engage in a catchment change for the following schools. In September 2024, Brocklehurst Middle School, NORCAM Secondary School, A.E. Perry, Arthur Hatton, Bert Edwards, K. Bingham, Parkrest, and Rayleigh. Now, Parkrest is slated to be completed by December 2023. Therefore, motion 4 is to consult the North Shore and Brocklehurst staff and parent communities about the proposal to reopen Parkrest Elementary School as K-7 in the spring of 2024 at 2170 Parkrest Avenue.
When discussing this with the TREC staff feedback was that there were concerns and questions around space and programming pressures in their current facility and a promise that they were expected to return to George Hilliard when Parkrest was reopened. At this time, Bridges staff, which is a transition program for students before going to high school, are prepared to move to Brocklehurst Secondary School. Other programs are examining changes to their current facility and still considering their options. The Aboriginal Education Council consists of representatives from the 7 local First Nations and Métis population. They had points for us to consider around 3 areas. The location for TREC, the current smaller location is thought to be better, and consulted with staff and parents as consultation with staff and parents has been happening, and they stress that that's very important. Considering programming, TREC has a focus on outdoor education and learning that is connected to the land, which the Aboriginal Education Council appreciates. They want the district to ensure that students are working towards academic dogwood diplomas, and they want the district to consider looking at the specialty programs such as academies that have been serving students very well, allowing them to connect to their passions and interests and look at even expanding those opportunities. Finally, they had some questions and concerns around transportation and would like the district to review transportation to reduce problems such as perceived safety concerns at bus exchanges, as well as sometimes buses being late or too full to stop and pick up students. So motion 5 is to consult the North Shore and Brocklehurst staff and parent communities about the proposal to move Bridges to Brocklehurst Secondary when it is a grade 8 to 12 school, and to keep alternative education and 4 directions at Happy Vale by September 2024.
In session 1, we examined 2 options for the proposed catchment areas. The first one was that George Hilliard would open as a K-7 school. And option 2 was that George Hilliard does not open as a K-7 school, and that the TREC programs, the 3 of them, move back in. This slide shows a side-by-side comparison of the 2 options presented. The section on the left is the capacity implications for 2024 if George Hilliard were to open as a K-7 school. And on the right-hand side are the implications for capacity if TREC returns to George Hilliard in 2024. A couple of points here is that on the left, K Bingham would be at 66%. However, on the right, it would be at 99% with 1 portable. For the first option, AE Perry would be at 95% capacity, whereas it would be at 117% capacity with 2 portables.
Catchment changes were explored in the last session, but we did put a slide in because we know that there may be questions, so we will be able to look at that slide with you if it's necessary. For Sun Peaks, they have a unique history. They began in 2012, 2013, and they began as a K-5 school, and grade 6 were to go to Rayleigh. Their designated middle school was Brocklehurst Middle School for the grade 7, 8, and 9 students, and their designated catchment school for grade 10 to 12 was Norcam Senior Secondary. They grew every year successfully from 2012-13 to 2017-18 until they became a K-7 school. And you can see right at the bottom there, that still meant that Brocklehurst Middle School was their designated catchment school for grade 8 and 9 students. And then their high school remained Norcam. By 2020-21, it was an exciting year because they became a K-9. And so they really did not need another designated school at that point. They became the school for their K-9 students, and they had a designated high school, which is and does remain Norcam Senior Secondary. When you look down to the bottom, 2024, not much changes for Sun Peaks. They remain a growing school, a vibrant school, and their only other designated school is Norcam Senior Secondary. That said, it's important to put what we've been through in the corporate memory, because we do want to be clear how this has affected Sun Peaks. And so because there's little change, it's important to document that. So the motion number 7 was to consult the Sun Peaks community about the recommendation to have the board approve that grades 10, 11, and 12 Sun Peaks students continue to have Norcam Secondary as an 8 to 12 school as their designated catchment area high school in the fall of 2024. Motion 8, also to make clear what is continuing, is to consult the Sun Peaks community about the recommendation to have the board approve Sun Peaks School, K-9, to continue as the designated catchment area school for K-9 Sun Peaks students in the fall of 2024. Sun Peaks students in grades 8 and 9 who prefer to attend Brocklehurst or Norcam secondary schools would adhere to the transfer request process as outlined in AP 305. The summary of the feedback as of May 15th is that really, after consulting all the elementary and secondary staffs and PACs, we had strong support for recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. However, as of May 15th, there was a change in support for motion 6, and we'll speak to that in a little bit. TREC staff were not all present for the reviews of the information on April 13th, which is where we got much of our consultation information from. And there is still some trepidation of staff about remaining at Happy Vale due to some of the constraints we've shared. So if you just look over to the left where there's the little blue rectangle, that rectangle is where 50 kids approximately exist and their families who are designated in K Bingham's area. However, when Park Rest opens, they would move with Park Rest students to the new school. And then as of fall 2024, they would move to K Bingham. So you can appreciate that that change means they're changing twice. And there's some other implications that we'll share in a moment. But motion 6 is to consult the North Shore and Brocklehurst staff and parent communities about this proposal to provide the choice to Parkrest Elementary students and their siblings who prior to September 2024 live in the proposed new K Bingham Elementary catchment areas presented to attend Parkrest Elementary School until the end of their elementary program in grade 7. So I just want to clarify that that would mean that those 50 students can stay. They don't actually go back to K Bingham. That was the motion at the time and still is.
We have reviewed the concerns from parents regarding the reduction in students from K Bingham if we allow these 50 students to stay at Parkrest Elementary. Here is a proposal received from a K Bingham parent and staff member. The idea here is to consider using Greenfield or Fleetwood instead of Young Avenue to make the K Bingham catchment area larger. This proposal also stated that only the grade 12s should be allowed to remain at NORCAM for 2024, and that because of the timing of this proposal, the Parkrest fire would have been 5 years ago, and therefore only one of those grades would have been affected by the fire. Although this map is not ideal, we have attempted to highlight the 2 areas suggested in the previous slide that would be included in the K Bingham catchment area. The large pink area, the large area indicated in pink would come out of the proposed Parkrest catchment area to K Bingham, and the smaller area would come out of the proposed George Hilliard catchment area and also become part of K Bingham. When Director McDonald analyzed this suggestion, he made a few assumptions, which included the third comment on the previous slide and only considered that the grade 12s would remain at NORCAM. However, we have considered that the grade 7s remaining at their current elementary school for 2024, as this has been the past practice in previous catchment area changes. With this suggestion, 115 students would move to K Bingham from the proposed Parkrest catchment area, and 55 students would move from the proposed George Hilliard catchment area to K Bingham. The results would be that K Bingham would be at 116% capacity utilization, Parkrest would be at 53%, and George Hilliard would be at 54%. The implication is that K Bingham would be too large and would require portables, whereas both Parkrest and George Hilliard would be under capacity.
Another theme that was considered concerning the size of K Bingham is question around combining K Bingham and Parkrest for sports teams and other things that require a larger student population. So the answer to that is indicated on the right. At the elementary level, we do not have schools that combine to field one sports team. The Elementary Sports Council tiers schools based on their enrollments so that they get to play against each other with similar enrollments. In School District 73, there are a number of schools that would fall within K Bingham's expected enrollment, 220 or under, who have strong participation in sports teams. Rayleigh, Marion Schilling, Barrier, and Ralph Bell are examples listed. Another question was around, could students from K Bingham walk over and take advantage of band programs and special events? It's important to note that Parkrest doesn't have a band program currently. And in terms of special events, schools do occasionally partner to have their students attend events. So this would absolutely be an option for consideration and would be dependent on the principals of Parkrest and K Bingham working together to make that happen.
And we did have a comment shared that was just on the left there. So in regards to Parkrest students moving twice, the first move would be back to Parkrest with their classmates and teachers. So not a full move. They're just switching physical locations. And we confirmed that, yes, that was the case. Like was discussed, all changes are difficult. I really only see it as one move and maybe disappointment at leaving a brand new school. And we just acknowledge that that is one way to look at what the situation is for the 50 students. What was interesting, though, is the advisory committee is comprised of representatives from all of the areas in Brocklehurst and the North Shore, as well as a trustee who comes and sometimes also can be the board chair and another trustee. So we have representation who really look seriously at all the feedback and think, what is it? Where do we stand right now? And I thought that it was an amazing meeting, actually, because at that point, they reviewed staffing at K Bingham and said, okay, so if the 50 students stay or go, what happens? So at Bingham at 66%, where they would get their students back, so they would be moving twice and come to their school. They would be losing 4 teachers, which is manageable. But if the 50 students were to stay at Parkrest, they would go as low as 172 students or 50% capacity utilization and lose 6 to 7 teachers. This caused a lot of discussion. So Cape Bingham staff are very committed to their students, and they have been together for several years, and keeping staff would sustain a positive culture. The drop of 50% to 50% or 172 students is going to alter the community so significantly that we may see some families wanting to transfer. And then we discuss supports. Although there would be a reduction in supports based on what students' needs would be in the number of students, so we could see a reduction in learning assistance resource time, library time, and possibly VP time. We would also make sure that the Aboriginal education teacher, Aboriginal education worker, and access to district supports like psychologists, school language pathologists, and the resource teacher for deaf and hard of hearing would be very accessible. So I don't want to leave this group with the impression we aren't thinking about that. We really are. And we're very dedicated to making sure that school is thriving the best it can, even if it goes to 50%. Parkrest staff, the principal has not yet spoken to all staff, but those whom she had spoken with at that time indicated a concern about this drop to 50%. And Parkrest staff also are talking with us about moving twice in close proximity, and that if the school is ready earlier, there may be a possibility to move earlier. Of course, no decisions have been made, but this was an important part of the discussion. Cape Bingham staff was very clear. The principal stated the feedback from staff is that they would rather have a portable than lose staff and students.
Transportation and safety of students was a theme that emerged during the round 1 meetings. Parents expressed concern over safety at the bus exchanges, both at Lansdowne and on the North Shore. And they also expressed their concerns for students walking to Brocklehurst Middle School from the Arthur Hatton area. Some questions that arose are, what are the options you can think of? How does this concern fit with Trek students and their requests? The answer is that currently we transport North Shore students from Burt Edwards, Arthur Hatton, John Todd, and Norcam areas to Brocklehurst Middle School, as this is their designated middle school. For students currently attending Norcam, there is a bus that picks them up from Brock Park and Brock Middle School and takes them to Norcam Senior Secondary, as this is their designated school. These bus routes were created 12 years ago due to the changes to school configuration at that time. For the 2024-2025 school year, we would not anticipate continuing these routes for students living in the Arthur Hatton area who attend Norcam Secondary as their catchment school. Along the same theme of transportation and safety expressed by parents, it is at times students attending Trek stated they had difficulty catching the bus because at times they were full or the bus driver would not stop. There's more concern expressed about the safety at the bus exchanges. The question that arose is whether the district could provide a bus. There is potential to provide a bus. However, Trek students live in many different areas within Kamloops. We would need to review where the students live and possibly consider a South Shore and North Shore pickup and drop off location. The implication is the district does not typically provide transportation for alternative programs or academies. On May 16th, I had a meeting with the City of Kamloops and BC Transit on the topic of transportation. They informed me at that time that there is security at both North Shore Exchange and the Lansdowne Exchange from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Based on the information shared on the pending catchment area changes and the proposed reconfiguration of Norcam and Brocklehurst, we may have 2 buses available to address the needs of the Trek students. Transportation issues. BC Transit and City Transit said, we typically do not see capacity issues on North Shore buses, but have been made aware of some issues on the city buses on the South Shore. And because Trek students live throughout Kamloops, taking a city bus to Trek can be difficult. As mentioned previously, we could look at a couple of pickup and drop off areas as a Trek special route. Within Board Policy 17 and Administrative Procedure 560 regarding student transportation, there are provisions to make exceptions for students with particular needs. There was a debate at the advisory committee on whether the transportation policy or AP contemplate what safety means. As we move forward in reviewing what may be possible, we are concerned with an influx of safety concerns and a concern about equity and what that means in terms of busing. 2 comments noted in the slide, as you can see, is a need to look at equality and the societal pressures being felt by our community. Discontinuing an existing bus route due to the changes contemplated this evening may be viewed as a hardship. One committee member mentioned that as an adult, no one bothers them in the areas viewed as unsafe, whereas at times students have been approached. Another comment from the committee was that if getting to school is a barrier, we need to consider how we, the district, can play a role in creating equity. We currently bus approximately 150 to 175 students living on the North Shore to Brocklehurst Middle School. I have received several inquiries to provide busing on the west side of Tronkill Road for students who attend Arthur Hatton, but the district simply does not have enough buses to accomplish this. Another comment was that there are adolescent students who are struggling to get to school due to safety concerns. In our rural communities, we also receive requests for bus services due to bear and cougar sightings. This safety concern is fair, but the intended consequence is that we are not able to provide busing to each area of concern, and it is very complex to be inconsistent. Our action items for the Transportation Department for the 2023-2024 school year are to review and optimize potential bus routes based on the current transportation policy and administrative procedure, and to continue how we might define equity and safety within the policy and AP and what may be possible going forward. We are very grateful for the feedback received from these meetings and appreciate we have time to work through these issues.
So another point made is from Rayleigh, and we've heard this a couple of times. I mean, Rayleigh students will lose the option of music and sports academies and can only request transfer, was the comment. But this would lead to not being with their cohort and no bus transportation. And the big comment in bold, I'm struggling to understand why NORCAM was determined as the designated school. So just taking your eyes to the right of the screen, making Brocklehurst Secondary School the designated catchment school for Rayleigh resulted in Brocklehurst becoming full, like 95% plus capacity utilization, and NORCAM dropping to 60% capacity utilization. And I want to point out that this has been the issue. Brock is too big, and so we're doing a catchment change and grade reconfiguration to balance. And so we want to create that balance. It's important that we don't have one school significantly much less than another, or it will be difficult to provide equitable programming. Another point was extending academies. So we have heard this loud and clear from the Aboriginal Education Council, from Twin Rivers Education Center, Brock and NORCAM parents and staff. But what does this actually mean, extend academies? Well, for some people, it meant the response was we could plan to start a second academy to extend the current academy. And for others, when we started talking about the purpose, it was very clear that some individuals just wanted more elite opportunities. So that was very real. They just wanted to have an academy to play against to get better. But there were others, and this would be the bulk of the, or the majority of the comments. The students love academies. It engages them. They want to go to school because of the academy. So how do we extend that sense of academy at Brock? Well, one of the things that was shared by the Aboriginal Education Council is, you know, community growth and team growth helps with self-esteem. So could we look at extending academies by having academy-like programming at more than one school? It's been less accessible to students outside of Brock is what the comment was, and that's true. When we choose a school to have a specialty program like an academy, that means that that school has it. And the good side of it, the principal said, is that because Brock's been so full, there haven't been a lot of additional spots to enable applicants to get in from outside Brock. But when we engage in the catchment change, the grade reconfiguration, there will be spots open. And as well, we can look at offering the soccer academy. The Aboriginal Education Council members also talked about the students just simply being interested in extracurricular and the richness of this and wanted that opportunity beyond Brock. The principal made a comment that it's no different than when you have international baccalaureate programming. We have to have teachers for programming that are trained in these programs and understand them and have the ability to offer them. So one concern expressed, and this was very natural, when we're going through change, it's hard. And you know, even though we say it's a year away, people worry. And so some of the teachers at Brock who want to teach just grade 7 were thinking, well, do I need to make that change now? And the only action we can take is to work with Human Resource Services, so Associate Superintendent Weidrich, to support these staffing questions. And I just want to remind the group, the board has not yet passed a motion. So remembering that this is a year away, and I know that catchment changes are often not done a year away, but that was the case for this one. So we have the blessing of time.
Another question that was raised in the first round of consultation was around registration of kindergarten kids at Parkrest versus K Bingham. And I'll just read the question on the left to clarify the context. So a kindergarten student who is registered into Parkrest for next year, has it been thought to register to K Bingham for next year so they don't have to move again in grade 1 should the catchment change be passed by the board? And so it's important to note that the District Advisory Committee has definitely considered that option. And it is possible because there is space currently in K Bingham for next year in kindergarten. The thing that we have to remember, though, is that the board still has to make a decision on whether or not they are going to approve a catchment change or not on the June 19th, 2023 public board meeting. Once the board, if the board, I should say, decides to approve that catchment change, then we can begin planning for that option to take root.
And
One of the other questions that came out of the May 16th consultation is, I understand the bus service from 12 years ago would be copied come September 24th, but our concern is safety for our kids. It is not safe to walk in this neighborhood anymore. That is why a bus is being asked for. So I will inquire into where the main safety concerns are through the school administration, and then we will work towards a solution.
the other question that came to us was that kids that are in Brock Middle School now should be able to stay until grade 12, especially if they live in out in Heffley Creek. And because they have friends that will not be able to go to Norcam with them because they live in Brock, they live in the Brock area. And we totally understand this. This is what's hard about a catchment change is we have friendships and relationships. And so I will address that in a moment. But the other comment was I did email but didn't get anything back. So on the right-hand side, we just want to emphasize, and this is has been corrected on the website, for questions that are emailed in, we are responding through the FAQs on our website rather than responding to each individual email, simply because of sheer volume. And also we will put and have put a note on our website that says important note, so you will see it. We will not be providing answers to individual emails, but rather answering them in the FAQ section. And for the second part, you know, I want to say this, if we could stretch out this catchment change so that we could avoid any change, we would. But the truth is Brock is too big. And the longer we leave it like that, in order to sort of stretch out the catchment change over a few years, the numbers get more and more imbalanced between the secondary schools. So, you know, if the board approves the proposed catchment changes and grade reconfigurations, Brock would have more space to accommodate more academy students. So if that's a concern for you, remember that we said the applicants who have not been able to get into the academy more likely will. But to keep the catchment area changes and the grade reconfigurations over a few years, like holding off, just made the numbers very, very large. And we ran them several different ways and different times, and we just know that that's not workable. And the next question, and if we did the paperwork, would there still be a bus from here to from here for 2024, sorry. So the designated catchment area school for Heffley Creek is NORCAM. Therefore, a bus at this time would not be provided for students wishing to attend Brock Secondary School. Will academies be available to students at NORCAM the same as they are at Brock? Yes, right now the academies are located at Brock, but if the students choose to attend and you're going to NORCAM, you apply to attend. And if there's space, just like it is now, you would be accepted. So the summary, I will turn it over to Secretary Treasurer Cassidy.
Thank you. So the summary of the Sun Peaks feedback consultation when we visited on May the 2nd with the staff and PAC is that they really felt that they wanted to create a community. The request at the time was to move the grade 8 and 9 students next to the grade 4 to 7 students and therefore reduce from 3 campuses down to 2. There have also been requests for additional portables at the new P5 location to provide office space and meeting rooms. Transportation was another theme. There was discussion about the availability of bus routes, and we explained on that day that the current routes would be reviewed. They also asked about catchment areas. They asked for a catchment area map for Sun Peaks, which we were able to provide. We are working on more detailed catchment maps through a program that we use called Beauregard Demographics. They also asked about programming. So they would like to have support to research how to offer electives and programming that is engaging and similar to other junior high schools. So the goal really for the Sun Peaks community is to have a vibrant K-9 and actually a K-12 school in the future. They confirmed that their goal is to have that K-12 school sooner rather than later, and they would work at making Sun Peaks the growing school community. They asked also for their own time for consultation for round 1 and 2. And so as you had seen in previous slides when we started this presentation, that we have added Sun Peaks and Heffley Creek. The first one was last night and the next one is later on. Thank you. Just a moment, we need to switch out our mics. Thank you.
Sorry. I apologize. I realize now that maybe you didn't hear because of technical difficulties. So I'll just repeat motion 5. So bridges moving. Brock Middle School is too big. So due to class size composition rules, it may be that we cannot move the bridges programming. And so that is true. And even though they're willing to move, that may not be possible because of the number of students. And motion 6, we said, is a generative tension there. It is very difficult. We don't want kids moving twice. We understand the stress that causes, and we have deep compassion and empathy. But we also know what that will do to K Bingham. you know, that school would possibly lose 6 to 7 teachers. It would be at 50%. So that is not a wonderful result either. And it is natural that during change, we have to explore and see what we can do to do the best we can to make a recommendation to the board. And we do look to you for your advice and feedback and questions. Motion 7 and 8 in Sun Peaks, they have been meeting with us and they have provided a little bit of information yesterday. And we actually have a steering committee meeting tomorrow as operations staff. And so, you know, we're continuing to meet Sun Peaks and get further information. And finally, how can you join round 1 and 2? So one of you might say, well, I've missed, like, I need to join again, or I'd like to join again. Well, you saw on the website that you can, that there will be opportunities for you to join again. There's 2 more dates. Also, Dana Heyman is very helpful. So if you contact her and you would like to present, or you would like some help about which, you know, sessions are left, she can help you out if you're struggling at all with our website. All right, so now we are just going to take a moment and there are some questions. Okay, I may have misunderstood and I would like clarity. If a student will be in NORCAM, could they still apply to Sports Academy in Brock? Yes. So a student can be in NORCAM and apply to attend Brock Academy. And that is through a normal application process that exists even now. But the best news for you is that when we complete the catchment changes in the grade reconfigurations, if the board approves them, then you would have more spots and so a greater likelihood of getting in. Now, the application process is my best suggestion here is just to go to the principal of Brock sheet. And honestly, the website is very detailed and good, but just go to the principal of Brock and ask, what is the process? And they send you an application form and explain the process succinctly. So there was a question about music programming. I'm going to turn that question over to Assistant Superintendent Riley. Thank you.
Thanks, Superintendent Nixon. So in terms of the music program, it's not necessarily the same as an academy because it's really just a course. It's like a band course. So if you wanted your child to be a part of the band course at Brock, it would just be a transfer request. So a very similar answer to the first question. It's a little bit different in the sense of an academy. You're in that program and it's a little bit more intensive. But really, it's still the same. It's a transfer request to the principal at Brock, and then the principal determines if there's space in the school for your child to attend.
Well, thank you so much. We've had a wonderful evening. And again, please do not hesitate to go to the FAQ page, provide a question. And then as well, if you have any questions that can't be answered through the website, Dana Heyman at Heyman at st73.bc.ca is a wonderful resource. Thank you.